We're going to move on to the next panel, which is going to be discussing real-world adoption. This is going to be the last panel of the night. Well, night for me, day for everybody else back in the States. We'll just get everybody in. Looks like we have we got everybody here. So I'll run through the bios. We have Orion, who was with us a few hours back for the blockchain games.
Hello.
Yes, and hold on a second. Actually, guys, do you just want to give short bios about yourself? I don't have them here. So, Alex, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Hi, everyone. My name is Alex, and I was working in sales and consulting for biggest software companies for around 12 years. And starting 2017, I'm full-time crypto and co-founder of value-added services from Orion chain. Yeah, that's about me.
Great. Willem.
Yeah, hi, I'm Willem Mulders. I'm one of the co-owners of VectorBlocks. I worked for more than 15 years as a strategy and business development professional, and I worked for companies like Deloitte, Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, so pretty big companies. And after that, I pivoted my experience to the crypto space.
All right. Thanks, guys. Ryan, you want to say something?
Yeah, my bio, I'm really into crypto. And no relation to Alex's project, Orion Chain. Everyone assumes that I used to...
I did think you were part of it.
Yeah, when they would come up with a new article, whatever, people would message me and say, "Hey, the new article looks great." I'm like, "Geez, thanks. Which article?" Yeah, just to clear up that confusion once and for all.
So guys, we're covering a topic which I think is kind of will wrap up everything that we've been speaking about here. You know, we've been talking about technology, we've been talking about trading, we've been talking about growth. And in this panel, we're going to wrap everything up by discussing adoption and what's needed to actually get full adoption of both cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. So I'd like to get your thoughts, just to start off, about what real world adoption actually is, and what exactly we're talking about here. Is it everybody owns Bitcoin, or are there other metrics that we could use to judge this?
I can go first.
Mm-hmm.
So, I see adoption as this little niche technology we have here, reaching the same level as a real-world thematic counterpart. So, I mean, it just depends on what aspect of this technology you focus on. So, if you say, blockchain just as a technology, then that's just a way to build cloud databases, right? So, I see blockchain adoption as when blockchain tech has the same level of use as current cloud computing services have. That's to me. If we're talking about Bitcoin, then it depends how you see Bitcoin. If you see Bitcoin as a means of exchange, then I would say mass adoption for Bitcoin is when Bitcoin has the same level of use as the currency of a small country and the same level of respect. If you see Bitcoin as a store of value, then I would say the same kind of level of respect and use as gold. Tokens, I don't really know what to compare them to. Like maybe the same level of use as Chuck E. Cheese. Tokens? Yeah. So.
Alex or William, you want to take it?
Yeah. No, fine. I think we need to differentiate between projects that could reach real-world adoption within an industry, and I think blockchain technology in general, with use case with the potential to reach mass adoption, like cryptocurrencies being used as a form of payment, replacing traditional financial systems. So the main question for me is, what is mass adoption then? So I think mass adoption is when a relatively large part of consumers are adopting cryptocurrency, and a simple dApp has the potential, of course, to reach adoption. But for me, that does not mean that this will result in mass adoption. So it is really important for the industry as a whole to determine if and how big adoption takes place.
Yep, that was a good one. Have something to add on top. So it's also important to keep in mind that businesses and governments are also working on adopting blockchain, and there are lots of pilots going around with big corporations and even governments. And I think it's a matter of creating the first precedent when a really big company or a government start using blockchain on a bigger scale. And if we are talking about businesses, there are many use cases where blockchain technology can give certain preferences and optimizing their processes, so they'll be more competitive and others would need to catch up with them. And this will naturally create kind of mass adoption if many companies in the specific vertical will start using blockchain technology.
Yeah, maybe a small addition to what Alex said. I think people don't necessarily need to know about the technology behind it, right? As long as the use case fulfills the needs of a consumer in an efficient and simple way, I think there is a chance that adoption takes place. For me, it's all about a product market fit and how consumer focused a project really is.
Yeah, and an interesting thing to share just from the past. So we used to taking photos like with our classic photos, without the smartphones, but we're not thinking about sharing them like on the daily basis on the messengers and chats, etc. Because we're not having convenient tools to do so. So the same thing with the blockchain. So there are many use cases where only blockchain can provide us new ways of sharing different things. So it's just a matter of adopting this technology. So we'll see many interesting things happening.
Very true.
So we had talked previously in the last panel specifically about Bitcoin for quite a while, and Bitcoin's features are very specific, and it's tailored towards doing something very well, which is being immutable, being censorship resistant on a distributed, decentralized ledger. There's a few other things, but I'll just stop there. So, when we're talking about adoption, right, we can split it up into two parts, right? We have adoption of certain features of what makes Bitcoin so good, and then we also have adoption of Bitcoin or just cryptocurrencies themselves, right? How much difference do you guys see in between the adoption of a immutable, censorship-resistant cryptocurrency and all the other variations of it versus specific parts of the actual technology by enterprises or by other people or software developers or whomever would use that?
I can take that if no one else wants to. I see it as huge, the difference, as the difference between, like it's the difference between the corporate world and the ICO world, right? In a corporation, you don't have an open mentality. You already have funding. You don't think of things the same way as these startups are thinking, Like, I see, like, to implement the technology, these core features of Bitcoin, these things, the immutability, the records, all that blockchain technology, you don't really need, like William was saying, you don't need the users to know they're using cryptocurrencies, right? You just need to implement the technology. And you might have several rails on top of that technology, or might be just one small factor of a big rail stack, but the users will never know, right? So it's just a case of these corporations finding a use case and being comfortable with this use case and doing things the way they like to do it. Now, for cryptocurrency adoption, it's a case of users like you guys were discussing in the dApps, like users becoming comfortable with the concept of tokens, right? This new way of doing things, this different way of doing things. So I see the adoption of cryptocurrency and the adoption of blockchain technology as drastically different because they're focused on two different worlds: the corporate world, and then more of a venture consumer-based world. if you understand the difference I'm trying to explain.
Sorry,
Sam, you're muted.
Yeah, no, I am muted. Alex or Willem, do you have any other comments?
No, I think Orion said it completely perfectly, and I fully align with what he said.
Yeah, I think same for me. So there are different purposes and different things needs to happen. So yeah, I 100% agree on that.
So what do you see? What do you see as some specific use case examples that would have the potential for adoption, as we were talking about it, and what would you base those arguments on?
Yeah, shall I take this one? I think projects could implement less volatile solutions for consumers, right? For example, take PundiX, a very well-known cryptocurrency in the space, and they have their POS devices, and the tokens they use are having a huge volatility, right? So for me, that doesn't support adoption. To me, this is a clear example of how not to achieve adoption. And a simple solution could be, for example, a dual token system with a stablecoin. And I think one of the use cases here is that a company is called Celemantics, which is one of those companies who thought about this, and they are trying to implement this in the technical design. So there are companies who are trying to achieve the same goal, different setup, and the question is, who will get adopted? And I think this is a particular example of what you were asking.
Yeah, to add on top of that, so that was a good use case, Willem. Yeah, I agree. So another great use case can be for people transferring money to in other countries. So it is happening all around the world that people are looking for better salaries, better lifestyle, so they are migrating to more wealthy countries, while perhaps part of their families still stay in less developed countries. So they're sending their money back to their home. So Western Union was primarily one of the best companies for this, but they're charging, of course, big fees, and also cryptocurrency exchange, fiat exchange as well. So it's quite expensive and takes some time. So cryptocurrency can be a great solution here by reducing the fees dramatically and also making it way faster. Just to give a perspective, so in order for me, let's say I'm sending money to Colombia, so that will take 5% just to change the currency, and another several percent to send the money. So it is like 7%. I'm losing 7%, while with the blockchain it can be less than 1. So yep.
Yeah, this is an excellent use case. It's basically the same, Alex, as what Ferro Network is doing, right? In Nigeria, sending money from A to B, and there is such a high cost involved in those countries, and sending money is so difficult for many people there. And they came out with this solution, and it is not for me about the solution, it's about the product market fit. It's exactly what the people in Nigeria need, a simple solution for sending money from A to B. And then is the question, is the company able to design the UI, the user interface, in such a way that it is so simple and easy to use? And if they can do that, I think then they have an use case which basically is a perfect example of excellent product market fit.
Yeah, I agree. I think Orion has some interesting use cases as well.
Yeah. I don't joke. Yeah, I joke that the most immediate use case for blockchain is money laundering, which
yeah,
which all these entities worry that'll be the first thing we do. First thing we'll do is, if you allow us to use blockchain, use crypto, we'll launder all the money we can. But besides that, I see like on the blockchain side, blockchain is just essentially it's a database, and you can set ownership and access to this database among its nodes evenly, whether that's an open network where nodes can come and go like Bitcoin, or whether that's a private sort of network like on a Hyperledger where you can choose the nodes. But there is a use case for this keeping records, basically, I think, being able to keep records. And by having, an immutable record that you can either make closed to a select participants or open to anyone, you have various different use cases that at the moment haven't 100% come the rest, but there's so many different possibilities that are slowly developing. Supply chain is the favorite for corporations, and identification is the favorite for governments. Right now, they're just like mainly pilot programs and experimentation, but we'll see how they develop.
Yeah. Orion, what do you think about VPN solutions? We don't see them many at the moment in the market, right? There are many centralized solutions and so many people utilizing VPNs. If a really cool decentralized VPN would draw to market, that would be a big use case, right?
Yeah. Don't we already have that with Tor, with the Onion network?
Yeah, of course. But I think there are so many people using VPN. There is no one solution that fits all these millions and millions and millions of people, right? There's always room for competitors which do it maybe in a better way or in a different way.
Yeah, it's definitely a big vertical with a lot of options. I'm just curious, like who's the Monero tech lead? Fluffy Pony? That's his name. That's his great name. Yeah, Fluffy Pony. He was criticizing I think it was Loki's idea of incentivizing routing nodes. Which, I mean, it's amazing that the Tor network has survived so long just with volunteer nodes. But I mean, there is a certain amount of argument whether having volunteer nodes or having incentivized nodes is the best way to create a routing network like Tor or something similar. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see if it can actually be pulled off, if it's just something that's never been done before.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of other things I would like to mention. Is because we are talking about adoption and actually bringing awareness that blockchain exists to a bigger audience. There is such a use case as government-issued stable coins. So China is working on it, and Russia is also looking into it. So, and these kind of the use cases that will be well covered in the news, that's for sure, and on the different kinds of the mass media and television, etc. So it will be good for everyone probably as well in terms of bringing awareness that blockchain technology can help at least to reduce fees while transferring the money. So that's obvious. So I think that can be a good one. And another use case, which is a more kind of the entertainment, is collectibles or games on the blockchain. And so there are many companies attempting to do so, but I think it's a matter of marketing for these kind of dApps to actually acquire a really big audience that will engage and starting doing so. So there is a particular example of company Akomi, and they do have in their team people that were actually building all the Pokemon Go hype back in the days. So the hype was just insane, like almost all around the world. And it is another great use case if it will be, let's say, the same hype as Pokemon Go #2. So that will be great for blockchain, because anyway, people will be mentioning that it's actually based on the blockchain somewhere behind the scenes. So it's working flawlessly, and we don't know how, but it is working. And that's a kind of the unique Pokemon that I'm owning. So yeah, that would be good one.
Maybe there's in the gaming industry, there is one advantage there for adoption for blockchain technology, right? Maybe people are already familiar with technology, right? They experience technology, they are busy with technology, with gaming, with computers and video cards. So I think that is an advantage in that particular industry.
Yep.
So we had a question in the YouTube chat. Silvio asked, guys, what do you think about corporations using blockchain for compliance purposes? Have you seen this as an effective means of using this technology?
Yeah, like I haven't seen anything on a large scale. I'm aware that the CTF, what's the American Commodities Commission company?
CTFC?
Yeah, CTFC. I've talked to one or two people at the CTFC that have been working on, doing research in hopes of eventually doing a pilot program on, RegTech that can be implemented into the CTFC. There's definitely a lot of, states that are looking into blockchain for compliance. I think everything right now, just the way governments and corporations move, they do so very slowly. And, governments are still slowly looking into blockchain, it's not like, corporations need incentives, right? If things cost more money and are more difficult, why the hell would you do that, right? If blockchain works as an immutable record, sure, you can keep a good, safe record that can prove that you're following the rules, but why would you do that? Well, you need a government or a group to force you or incentivize you to do that. But governments are still very early stage in their experimentations, I think. They're looking at it, but they haven't really committed to anything because that's how governments work. They're very slow and they like to take their time and they like to do a lot of pilot programs and tests. So I see tons and tons of interest everywhere, all over the world, like Dubai, Thailand. Everyone is interested in doing research into it, but no one's really made a huge commitment yet.
Yeah, and probably there is a reason for it as well. So my kind of the problem with the digital ID is the last mile. So when it is on the blockchain, it's not okay. It's really hard to hack it and etc. But still, putting like a verification for your phone, through your fingerprints or through your face scan, it's still not 100% accurate to put it, let's say, on the really global scale. So it's getting better in the last years, and some of the banks, they're implementing like dual verification through the fingerprint scan and at the same time face recognition. But it is not that polished yet in order to put it on the global scale. So it's still possible to kind of verify the wrong person. And because it's digital ID, you will have an access to too many things. Yeah. Imagine if it is like your electronic passport or things like that, and there is a wrong person accessing everything. Yeah, so that's that can
these are also the same ways with voting. Like I went to a panel recently where the presenter was the Secretary of State of Western Virginia, and they implemented a blockchain solution made by a Boston-based company, Votes, Chicago-based, one of the two, Votes, that they use to do voting for American West Virginian residents who are in the military. And thus, voting by mail is pretty complicated, pretty tedious. So they implemented used blockchain to make a digital solution specifically for them. Now that worked fine, but when asked, if they would ever consider doing it in a broad scale for, everyone, they were definitely very cautious of the idea because of all these issues that Alex mentioned and other issues. Just something so important like voting, that they're worried about all these technical faults that could be used to exploit a very important system.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no,
because
there was. Oh, sorry. Go on, Alex.
Yeah, I will just quickly finish this because the percentage of the error that you're having, it's still relatively large. So if it is, let's say, thousands, that's okay. But if it is like tens of millions of people, so it's getting a bit dangerous.
Even 10,000 would be too much even 1,000 incorrect votes or maybe 100 incorrect votes would be too much in like for a political election. People would feel very uncomfortable with that amount of errors.
Yeah, I mean that's if you're verifying 10,000 people by, let's say, fingerprint scanner or face recognition, probably it will work flawlessly. So there will be no different persons identified in the single one. But on the larger scale, let's say at 10 million people, there will be more errors identifying people. So then you will have probably Orion and Alex identified as the same person. So that can be a problem.
And maybe also in addition to what Silvio was asking in the chat, of course, here in the Netherlands, LTO, I think, recently made a partnership or announcement that they are going to utilize the LTO blockchain technology within the government, right? I think it was for internal purposes, internal compliancy, to make their own processes more efficient. And I think it was also for their compliance to their internal processes. So I think it's a good way. It brings more efficiency within the company. And they estimated that the cost of the process will reduce. So I think it's a good way. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah. So another thing to add on top, just a great use case that people can benefit from is scoring system. For instance, so for a couple of reasons. So the first one is making it more secure. So there were a couple of incidents with the centralized system when it was hacked and a lot of data was leaked from Equifax, if I can recall it. But it's really super rarely happening still. The better use case is, let's say we have a problem at the moment when people are immigrating from one country to another, their scoring system is basically going to zero. So someone who has a perfect scoring, credit scoring, I mean, in Germany, like for many, many years, he had loans, he paid it back, et cetera, immigrating to the US, and basically he needs to start from scratch. And by having like some kind of a unique scoring system that can be applied around the world, it can solve this problem.
And also a little bit scary, the thinking that you're going to be scored and that could be potentially publicly available.
Oh yeah, look at the China.
Yeah, the China. But I also see tons of projects doing similar ideas, like with medicine. Some projects talk about, and I don't know how feasible that is, but they talk about doing research or whatever in one country, verifying that with a blockchain, and then hoping that blockchain information, that immutable information right there, is enough to then satisfy regulators in another country. Just an example. Who knows if that will be true, because that depends on the regulators. So, but that's just an example that the idea that blockchain can be used as an unbiased record that would then be able to circumvent a lot of regulation issues, which we haven't really seen work out yet, because no regulator has accepted that yet. But a lot of people looking at that as a solution for certain issues when it comes to like international or cross-border regulation. Supply chain is a bit, very popular.
Yep. Guys, let's wrap it up. Let's get some final comments. We can go from Willem to Orion to Alex and just wrap it all up. You guys wrap up the whole web conference and leave us on a good note.
Yeah, I'm personally really happy to see what 2019 and onwards brings in terms of real-world adoption. I think projects need to start deliver and show some results with all the money they raised in the past. And hopefully they think about user experience and simplicity. And really make something which is usable and consumers and companies can actually use. And I think more in general about this whole conference, Samuel, you did a great job, man. I saw you the whole day and yesterday. So thank you for hosting everything, of course, and Terra Nova and Andrew, who did an excellent setup of this whole conference. So yeah.
Yeah, but I'll just echo what William said. Let's all give Sam a big pat on the back for
luckily on the back
for hosting this conference, and everyone else who gave great information beforehand, and Sorge for doing like 120 spots in for being in every single panel, and Terra Nova, of course, for handling the background, and Andrew for setting everything up, and everyone who came. And as far as real world adoption, it's just as long as the idea is good, it'll get there eventually. Like back in the year 2000, people, there were like 20 projects trying to do what Netflix did, and they all failed, they all died, and 20 years later we have Netflix. I think, if it doesn't work out now, if the idea is good, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I want to mention is of course the level of trust within the space, right?
So I think we're out of time, so maybe.
Oh, really?
Let Alex speak.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's go on.
Yeah. So we have so many things to discuss, and unfortunately, we doesn't have enough time. So I would like to quickly mention that I hope that regulations will be more clear later on. It will help projects also to move forward easily, because at the moment sometimes they're even delaying their mainnet because of the SAC regulations, which is insane. So that will help for sure to adopt crypto. And as guys were already mentioning, big thanks to all the organizers this event. I think that it was amazing.
Oh, great, guys. Thank you for helping me wrap it up. I want to thank Alex and Orion and Willem for joining this panel. It's really interesting, and you guys did a great job wrapping up the whole web conference. Thank you for the support and the thanks. I'd like to give a big thanks out to Terra Nova for working in the background to make sure everybody got here on time, and just making sure that everything went really smoothly. Also, Andrew Lee, whose idea was to come up with the Web3 Journal Conference, web conference. It looks to be that this will not be the only one. We're probably going to push out and try to do this on a quarterly basis. It was really fun. I know that all the guests here had a great time, and we'll be back next time with some even better dialogue and even better discussions, and hopefully get a lot of the same speakers back to come and give some updated thoughts in the next crypto quarter. So thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. It's been really fun, and signing off. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.